I remember the sound first, not my daughter's voice, not the boarding announcement. It was the dry, uneven rattle of carry-on wheels skipping over the tile near the check-in line, the kind of sound airports always have before sunrise, when everything feels slightly unfinished and everyone looks more important than they are. We were at Terminal C in Newark. Bright lights. Polished floors that reflected your shoes if you looked down. The smell of coffee that always seems stronger than it tastes. I had my passport in one hand, my phone in the other, and Rebecca was standing just half a step ahead of me at the counter, holding the boarding passes. She said it casually. "You'll be in economy, Mom. Daniel and I are up front." She said it the way people mention the weather. No pause, no shift in tone, no awareness of how it might land. For a second, I thought I had misheard her. "I'm sorry," I asked. Rebecca didn't look up right away. She was adjusting the strap of her handbag, camel-coloured, structured, the kind you notice even if you try not to. "It was the only practical option," she said. "There were just 2 premium seats left." Daniel gave me that familiar smile of his, polished, controlled, the kind of smile that works well in photographs but doesn't quite reach the eyes. "Travel's been packed lately," he added smoothly. "Hard to get decent inventory this close to departure." Inventory. That was the word he chose. I remember noticing it more than I expected to. Not seats, not places. Inventory. I looked down at the boarding pass in my hand. Seat 34E, a middle seat. I had flown enough over the years to know exactly what that meant. Not just the space, but the experience. The quiet negotiation for armrests, the careful stillness, the sense of being placed rather than included. And the entire trip had been charged to my card. That part didn't need to be said out loud. It was just there, sitting quietly beneath everything else, like a second conversation no one wanted to acknowledge. The airfare, the villa outside Cascais, the transfers, the dinner reservation Rebecca had insisted on because, as she put it, "If we're doing Portugal, we're doing it right." I had paid for all of it. At the time, I didn't react. That's something people often misunderstand about moments like this. They expect a reaction to arrive immediately, fully formed. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it arrives slowly. It settles into place piece by piece. Behind the counter, the agent, a young woman with a neat ponytail and a navy scarf, looked briefly between us, then back at her screen. She had the careful expression of someone trained not to notice personal tension. "You're all checked through to Lisbon," she said. Rebecca nodded. "Perfect." Then she turned slightly toward me and lowered her voice, just enough to make it sound considerate. "Please don't make this a thing." That was the sentence. Not the seat. Not even the arrangement. That, "Please don't make this a thing." As if noticing it would be the problem. As if dignity were something inconvenient. As if I were someone who complicated situations simply by acknowledging them. Some people mistake silence for permission. I didn't say that out loud. At the time, it was just a passing thought. Later, I realized it was the center of everything. Behind us, a child was crying somewhere near the security line. A sharp, tired kind of crying. The kind that echoes. Off to the side, milk steamed loudly at a coffee counter. The air smelled faintly of espresso and cleaning solution. Rebecca had already turned back to the agent. "Can you tag these priority?" she asked. The suitcases were mine. Not in the sense that I was using them. In the older sense. Purchased by me. Given by me. Chosen carefully because she had admired them once in a store window and called them timeless. They were still in excellent condition. Deep brown leather trim, brass hardware, quietly expensive. The agent attached the tags. "Priority bags for premium cabin passengers," she said. Daniel took the claim slips. Rebecca adjusted her sunglasses on her head, though we were standing under fluorescent lights. Then she handed me my boarding pass. Fully now, as if that completed something. "You'll board later anyway," she added. "We'll see you when you get on. We'll see you when you get on." That part stayed with me. Not because of how it sounded in the moment, but because of what it revealed. Not "sit with us," not "let's figure something out." Just a neat placement. "You'll come later. You'll fit in where there's space." I looked at Daniel then. Really looked at him. He had already moved on. Phone in hand, scrolling, calm, composed, as if everything was proceeding exactly as expected. That's when something shifted. Not outside. Nothing visible changed. No raised voices. No interruption. No dramatic pause at the counter. Just clarity. I stepped back slightly and said, "Excuse me a moment." Neither of them stopped me. That detail stayed with me too. No one asked where I was going. I walked toward the windows at the far end of the terminal. The kind of windows that look out over the runway, where everything moves slowly and deliberately. Planes lined up, ground crews moving in measured patterns, a baggage cart passing with a blinking yellow light. For a few seconds, I stood there. Then I looked down at the boarding pass again. 34E. I turned it over in my hand. At the time, I didn't think much of that gesture. Later, I realized it was the first moment I stepped outside the role I had been quietly holding for years. I opened my phone. I've never been someone who pretends not to understand numbers, or systems, or how things are structured. I spent decades managing leases, negotiating contracts, resolving disputes that other people preferred to avoid. A mobile banking app isn't complicated after that. The charge appeared immediately. 3 passengers, Newark to Lisbon. I opened the booking details. Everything was clean, organized. Names listed one beneath the other. Rebecca Hale, Daniel Hale, Marianne Porter. I scrolled to the seat assignments. 2 in business class, 1 in economy, the middle seat. For a brief moment, an old instinct surfaced. Let it go. It's just a flight. Don't make it bigger than it is. That instinct had guided me more times than I could count. It had also cost more than I had fully acknowledged. My thumb hovered over the screen, while the terminal continued its quiet rhythm around me. A man nearby whispered sharply into his phone. A boarding announcement echoed overhead. Someone dropped a cup lid that skidded across the floor. Normal sounds, nothing unusual. But something had already changed. I clicked into the booking options. Modify reservation. The menu appeared. Change seat. Upgrade passenger. Cancel passenger. I glanced over my shoulder. Rebecca and Daniel were still at the counter, still speaking with the agent. Calm, settled, certain. They believed the structure of the morning had already been decided. That certainty stood out to me more than anything else. I looked back at the screen, and for the first time, I didn't feel the need to respond emotionally. I felt the need to understand procedurally. I opened the fare rules, reviewed the payment authorization, confirmed the ownership of the booking. When you've spent enough time working within systems, you learn where authority actually sits. Not where people assume it is, where it is documented, where it's attached. The paperwork already had my name on it, not figuratively, literally. I returned to the main screen. 3 names, still in place. My finger rested lightly against the phone. A message came in from Rebecca. "Where did you go?" I read it once, then closed it. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Do you need anything?" Just, "Where did you go?" I didn't respond. Instead, I looked again at the boarding pass in my hand, then back at the reservation. There are moments when a situation stops being about what just happened and starts revealing a pattern. I think that was one of those moments. This wasn't about a seat. It was about placement, expectation, and something I hadn't fully named yet. I stood there for a few seconds longer. Then I tapped into the modification screen again. Cancel passenger. The system asked me to select a name. 3 options appeared. I didn't choose yet. Not because I was unsure, because I prefer to understand timing. There's a difference between making a decision and making it effective. Around me, the terminal had filled in slightly. More movement, more voices. The quiet of early morning giving way to something steadier. I watched it all without really focusing on any one thing. Then I looked back at the screen. 3 names. Waiting. And for the first time that morning, I understood something clearly. I didn't need to react. I needed to decide. I didn't press anything yet. That part mattered more than it might seem. People tend to think decisions like this happen in a single instant, something sharp, reactive, almost impulsive. But that's not how it felt. It came in layers. First the awareness, then the confirmation. Then, slowly, the recognition of a pattern that had been there much longer than that morning. I stood by the window, with the reservation still open on my phone, not acting, just observing. Behind me, Rebecca's voice carried faintly across the terminal. Not loud, but tighter now, controlled in a way that suggested something had shifted. Daniel was saying something in response, low enough that I couldn't make out the words. I didn't turn around. I've learned that if you give your attention too quickly, people assume they still have influence over the outcome. Instead, I kept reading. 3 months earlier, when Rebecca first mentioned the trip, she had called on a Tuesday afternoon. I remember because I had just finished reviewing a contractor invoice for a roofing repair in Montclair. I was in my kitchen, waiting for the kettle to boil. "You need a break, Mom," she said. Her voice had been warm then, light, almost persuasive. "We're thinking Lisbon," she continued. "Daniel found this beautiful place just outside the city. Sea views. It's quiet. It'll be good for all of us." At the time, I didn't question it. That's the first moment that came back to me. I was standing at the counter, one hand resting on the edge of the sink. The window was cracked open, and I could hear a lawnmower somewhere down the block, steady and repetitive. "You're sure?" I asked her. "I don't want to be in the way." She laughed softly. "Mum, you're not in the way. You're the reason we can even consider something like this." I remember pausing for a second after she said that. At the time, it sounded like appreciation. Later, I understood it differently. Behind me, in the present, I heard footsteps approaching. "Mom?" I turned slightly. "There you are," Rebecca said. "We were wondering where you went." I noticed the phrasing again, not concern, not curiosity, just a mild inconvenience being corrected. "I stepped away for a moment," I said. Daniel stood just behind her, hands in his coat pockets, posture still composed but slightly more attentive than before. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Yes," I replied. "I'm just reviewing the reservation." That was enough, a small shift. Rebecca's expression changed not dramatically, just enough to register. "Why?" she asked. "I like to understand what I'm participating in," I said. It wasn't confrontational, just accurate. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Rebecca gave a brief, controlled smile. "Mom, it's just a flight." I nodded. "Yes," I said. That's what I'm confirming. That's when something in the space between us cooled. Not silence exactly. Just a pause that felt more deliberate than before. Daniel shifted his weight slightly. "We're boarding in about 40 minutes, he said. "We should probably head towards security." "I'll join you shortly," I said. Rebecca hesitated. "Don't take too long," she added. "Your boarding group is later." Again, that placement. Your boarding group, not ours. I gave a small nod. They stepped away. This time, I watched them go. They moved together, naturally aligned, like they always did in public spaces. There was a rhythm to it, a kind of practiced coordination. It worked well in most settings. Restaurants, meetings, social events. It worked less well when the underlying structure shifted. I turned back to my phone. The reservation was still open. 3 names. I didn't act yet. Instead, another memory surfaced. About 2 years earlier, Daniel had come to my house on a Sunday afternoon. It had been raining that day, a steady, quiet rain that softened everything outside the windows. He stood in my doorway holding a folder. "I just need a temporary bridge," he said. We were in the living room. I had made coffee. He hadn't touched his. "What kind of bridge?" I asked. "Short-term liquidity," he said. "One of the investments is tied up longer than expected." I remember the sound of rain against the glass while he spoke. "How much?" I asked. He hesitated. Just briefly. 200, he said. I didn't react. I just nodded once and stood up. "I'll transfer it in the morning," I said. That was the entire conversation. No documents, no written terms. At the time, I told myself it was family. Later, I understood it as precedent. Back in the terminal, I scrolled further down the booking details. Payment method, confirmed. Authorization, verified. Ownership, tied to the purchaser. It didn't say those exact words, but the structure was clear if you knew how to read it. My phone buzzed again. "Rebecca, where are you? We're heading to security." I didn't answer. Instead, I returned to the modification options. Cancel passenger. The system prompted me again. 3 names. I paused there. Not because I was uncertain, because I wanted to understand the sequence. Timing matters. Not just what you do, but when it becomes visible. Around me, the terminal had shifted again. More people, more motion. The steady build toward departure. I could see the security line now, filling in gradually. I imagined them there, shoes off, laptops out, moving forward, in that quiet procedural rhythm. I selected one of the names. The confirmation screen appeared. "Cancel this passenger's ticket." I didn't press confirm yet. Instead, I stepped away from the window and walked toward a quieter section of the terminal. A row of seats near a closed gate where no one pays much attention to anything. I sat down. Then I opened the hotel reservation. The villa outside Cascais. Sea-facing suite, 4 nights. Check-in requirement. Primary cardholder must be present. I read that line twice. Not because it was complicated, because it was precise. That was the first detail that extended beyond the flight. Not emotional, not personal, structural. I closed the hotel tab and returned to the airline reservation. The confirmation screen was still there, waiting. Across the terminal, I could see the entrance to security. The line moving in slow increments. Rebecca and Daniel would be in it now. Everything still looked normal. From a distance, nothing had changed. But something had. For a moment, I considered doing nothing, letting the flight proceed, letting the arrangement stand. It would have been easier. It always is, in the short term. But then something smaller came back to me. Not financial, not dramatic, just a dinner. Last fall at their condo. I had brought a bottle of wine and a small dessert from a bakery nearby. Lucas was at the table, quiet as always, watching more than speaking. Rebecca was telling a story about a client. Daniel interrupted her at one point and said, lightly, "Don't worry, Marianne always finds a way to smooth things out." Rebecca smiled. "Of course," she said. "Mum doesn't mind." Lucas looked at me then. He didn't say anything. He just looked. That look stayed with me longer than the conversation itself. Back in the present, I exhaled slowly. Then I looked down at the phone again. The confirmation button was still there. Calm, unchanged. Procedure doesn't rush. I pressed confirm. For a second, nothing happened. Then the screen refreshed. One name disappeared from the active booking. Status, cancelled. That was it. No sound, no alert beyond the quiet change on the screen. But I knew what would happen next. Not immediately. Systems take a moment to ripple outward. I placed the phone face down on my lap and waited. About 30 seconds later, I saw it. Rebecca, halfway through the security line, looking down at her phone, she stopped moving. Daniel turned toward her. She showed him the screen. His posture changed. Subtly, but clearly. From certainty to something else. He wasn't expecting that answer. I picked up my phone again, not to act, just to confirm. The reservation now showed 2 active passengers and 1 absence. That absence was about to become very visible. I didn't go to them. That was the next decision. After the cancellation, there was a brief moment where the old instinct returned, the one that says, go back, explain, smooth it over before it becomes uncomfortable. But that instinct had carried me through years of situations that never actually changed. So I stayed where I was. Procedure doesn't require explanation. It only requires consistency. From where I sat, I could see the security line shifting forward in small, controlled increments. Shoes placed into bins. Laptops lifted out. People moving without looking at each other, focused only on the next step in front of them. Rebecca stepped out of line. That was the first visible consequence. She moved quickly, not running, but with purpose. Daniel followed, already looking down at his phone, likely checking the reservation himself. They found me near the seating area. Rebecca didn't sit. What did you do? She asked. No greeting, no transition. Just the question. I looked up at her. I reviewed the booking, I said. That's not what I asked. Daniel stepped slightly forward. Marianne, he said, keeping his voice measured. Rebecca's ticket just got cancelled. Yes, I said. It did. For a moment, neither of them spoke. That pause mattered, because for the first time, something had happened outside their control. Rebecca crossed her arms. Why? I tilted my head slightly. You mentioned there were only 2 seats available in business class. That's not the point, she said sharply. It is part of it, I replied. Daniel exhaled slowly. Look, he said, this has to be a mistake. We just need to fix it. I noticed the word again. Fix. As if something had malfunctioned. It isn't a mistake, I said. Rebecca's voice rose just slightly. You cancelled my ticket. Yes. Why would you do that? The answer had already been given earlier, but I repeated it in a different form. Because the booking belongs to me, I said, and I adjusted it. That was the first clear shift. Not emotional. Institutional. Rebecca blinked. You can't just do that. I already did. Daniel stepped closer. This isn't helpful, he said. We're boarding soon. We need to reinstate the ticket. I won't be doing that, I said. That's when everything changed again. Rebecca stared at me. What do you mean you won't? I mean, I said evenly, the reservation has been updated. Daniel ran a hand along his jaw, thinking. Okay, he said. Then we'll just rebook her. That would be an option, I replied. Rebecca pulled out her phone immediately. Fine, she said. We'll handle it. I didn't stop her. There was no need. She moved quickly through the airline app, her expression tightening as she read. How much? Daniel asked. She hesitated, then turned the screen slightly toward him. 4,800, she said. For 1 seat? Yes. There was a brief silence. Around us, the terminal continued as if nothing had changed. A man nearby adjusted his tie. A child asked a question no one answered. A gate agent called out a name. Normal motion, normal noise. But the numbers had shifted. Daniel let out a quiet breath. That's steep. Last-minute pricing usually is, I said. Rebecca looked at me. You knew this would happen. I understand how the system works, I replied. Her eyes narrowed. You did this on purpose. I didn't respond to that directly. Instead, I said, you told me there were only 2 seats. That's not what I meant. I understood what you meant, I said. That stopped her for a moment. Because the meaning had been clear. She meant I should accept less. She meant I should adjust. She meant I should not question the arrangement. Daniel cleared his throat. We're losing time, he said. We need a solution. There are several, I said. Rebecca looked at him. I'm not flying economy. The sentence came out quickly, almost automatically, and for a moment, no one spoke. because the contrast was now visible. I watched Daniel carefully. He understood it. You could see it in the way he recalculated quietly, without announcing it. "Then we either pay for the upgrade," he said, "or we don't go." Rebecca turned toward him. "We're not cancelling the trip." "That depends," he said. "On what?" He didn't answer immediately. He looked at me instead. That was the second shift. Recognition. "You're not boarding either, are you?" he asked. "No," I said. Rebecca stared. "What?" "I won't be on the flight." "But the hotel," she started. "Yes," I said. "It's booked." "The transfers." "Yes." "The dinner reservation." "Yes." Her voice tightened. "Then what are you doing?" "I'm going home." That's when the room went quiet. Not the airport, just the space around us. Rebecca shook her head slightly. "You can't just walk away." I raised my eyes. "That's exactly what you were planning to do," I said. "Only from a different seat." Daniel glanced at his watch. "Boarding closes in 20 minutes, he said. Rebecca ignored him. "This is ridiculous," she said. "All of this over a seat?" "It isn't about the seat," I replied. "Then what is it about?" I looked at her for a moment, then said, "Expectation." The word didn't land immediately, but it stayed. Behind us, an announcement echoed through the terminal. "Final boarding call for passengers traveling to Lisbon." Rebecca turned instinctively toward the sound. Time had entered the situation. Pressure had followed. Daniel spoke again, more quietly now. "We also need to think about the hotel," he said. "What about it?" "It's under her card," he said. Rebecca frowned. "So?" "So," he continued, "they may require her at check-in." That was the next layer. Not emotional, structural. Rebecca looked at me. "You can just authorize it." "I won't be doing that," I said. Another pause. Longer this time, because now the pattern was visible. Flight. Hotel. Everything connected. Everything dependent. Rebecca's voice changed slightly. "You're willing to lose all of that?" "I've lost more maintaining a pattern that wasn't working," I said. Daniel looked down briefly, then back up. "We need to decide," he said. Rebecca turned toward him. "You're taking her side?" "I'm taking the situation as it is," he said. That was the third shift. Performance turning into adjustment. Rebecca looked between us. For the first time, she didn't have an immediate answer. Behind her, the gate agent made another announcement. Gate closing in 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Not enough time to rebuild something that had just been removed. Rebecca crossed her arms. "You always do this," she said. "Do what?" I asked. "Make things bigger than they are." I shook my head. "No," I said. "I've been making them smaller for a long time." That landed differently, not sharply, but clearly. Daniel checked his watch again. "We're out of time," he said. Rebecca turned to him. "So what do you want to do?" He didn't answer immediately. He looked at me. "You're not fixing any of this," he said. "No." "You're not authorizing the hotel?" "No." "You're not rebooking the seat?" "No." He nodded once, then turned to Rebecca. "We're not going," he said. That was the consequence. Not loud, not dramatic, just final. Rebecca blinked. "What?" "We're not going," he repeated. "You can't be serious." "I am." Behind them, the final boarding announcement echoed again. The structure had collapsed. And for the first time, it wasn't going to rebuild itself. They didn't leave immediately. That part stood out to me. The announcement had already been made twice. Final boarding, gate closing, the usual sequence. People nearby had started moving with more urgency, gathering their things, checking screens, adjusting bags. But Rebecca and Daniel stayed where they were, as if stepping away would make the situation more real. Rebecca looked toward the gate again, then back at Daniel. "We still have time," she said. "We can fix this." Daniel didn't respond right away. He was looking at his phone again, Not scrolling this time, just reading. What are you checking? She asked. The hotel terms, he said. There was a slight shift in her posture. Why? Because we need to understand what's still usable. That word again. Usable. I noticed how quickly the conversation had moved away from assumption and into evaluation. Rebecca shook her head. We already paid for it. Daniel glanced up. No, he said quietly. She did. That was the first time he said it out loud. Not implied, not softened, just stated. Rebecca didn't respond immediately. She looked at me instead. You're really going to do this? I already have, I said. For a moment, she held my gaze. Then she looked away first. That too was new. Daniel took a step to the side, slightly away from both of us, and made a call. His tone shifted as soon as the line connected, professional, composed, almost neutral. Yes, he said. I need to confirm a check-in requirement for a reservation in Cascais. Yes, under Marianne Porter. He paused, listening. I watched his expression change, not dramatically, just enough to register understanding. I see, he said. So the primary cardholder needs to be physically present. No exceptions. Another pause. Understood, thank you. He ended the call and stood there for a moment before turning back. Well? Rebecca asked. He didn't answer right away. Then, simply, we can't check in without her. Rebecca exhaled sharply. That's ridiculous. It's standard policy, he said. For who? For anyone who didn't pay for the reservation, he replied. That was the next layer settling into place. Not an argument, a condition. Rebecca ran a hand through her hair. So, what are we supposed to do? Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked around the terminal for a moment, as if trying to reset his perspective. Then he spoke, slower this time. We have two options, he said. We either stay and figure this out, or we go home. Rebecca let out a short, disbelieving laugh. We are not going home. That depends, he said. On what? He glanced toward me again, then back at her. On what's actually available to us now. That was the shift from expectation to reality. Rebecca turned back to me. You could fix this, she said. I could change it, I replied. I'm choosing not to. Why? The question came out softer this time, less sharp, more searching. I took a moment before answering. Because this wasn't an isolated decision, I said. It was part of a pattern. She frowned slightly. What pattern? I didn't list examples. I didn't need to. Placement, I said. Assumption, adjustment. The words didn't fully land yet, but they stayed in the space between us. Nearby, a gate agent called out, "Gate closing." A few last passengers hurried past. The line disappeared. And just like that, the option to board was gone. Rebecca turned toward the gate, watching as the final door closed. That's it? She said quietly. That's it, Daniel replied. For a few seconds, none of us moved. Then Rebecca picked up her bag from the chair beside her. Well, she said, though the word didn't lead anywhere. Daniel slipped his phone back into his pocket. We should step outside, he said. It's getting crowded here. It wasn't, particularly. But I understood what he meant. A change of space, a reset. We walked toward the exit together, though not quite as a group. There was distance now. Not physical, exactly, structural. Outside, the air was cooler. The sound of traffic replaced the constant hum of the terminal. Cars pulling up, doors opening and closing, a driver calling out a name that wasn't ours. Rebecca stopped near the curb. So what happens now? She asked. Daniel looked at her. We go home, he said. And then what? We reassess. That word again, reassess. Rebecca turned to me. And you're just done? I considered that. Not done, I said. Changed. She didn't respond. Instead, she looked past me, toward the line of cars, as if expecting something else to arrive. It didn't. A few seconds later, a familiar voice came from behind us. "Grandma?" We turned. Lucas stood a few steps away, holding his phone, slightly out of breath. "I came as soon as I saw your message," he said. Rebecca looked at him. "What message?" Lucas hesitated, then glanced at me. "I texted him earlier," I said. "Not the details, just enough." Rebecca's expression tightened. "You involved him?" "I informed him," I said. Lucas stepped closer, looking between us. "What's going on?" he asked. Rebecca exhaled. "Nothing," she said. "We're just not going on the trip." Lucas frowned. "Why?" No one answered immediately. Then he looked at me. I didn't explain everything, just one line. "The arrangement changed," I said. He nodded slowly. Then, after a moment, he said something that settled more than anything else had that morning. "She said you were easy to handle." Rebecca turned sharply. "Lucas." But he continued, not loudly, just clearly. "That's what you said last week," he added. "When you were talking to Aunt Claire." The words landed without force, but they stayed. Rebecca stared at him. "That's not what I meant." Lucas didn't argue, he just looked at her. And that look carried more weight than any explanation. Daniel shifted slightly beside her. Not stepping in, not correcting, just present. The social layer had surfaced now. Not controlled, not managed, just visible. Rebecca shook her head. "This is getting out of hand." "It's already settled," I said. She looked at me again. And for the first time, there was no argument in it. Just uncertainty. Behind us, a car pulled up. A driver stepped out and opened the trunk. "Marianne?" he called. I nodded. "That's mine," I said. Rebecca blinked. "You already called a car?" "Yes." "When?" "A few minutes ago." Another small detail. Timing. I picked up my bag. Daniel watched me for a moment. "You're leaving," he said. "Yes." Rebecca opened her mouth as if to say something, then closed it again. Lucas stepped back slightly to give me space. I walked toward the car. The driver took my bag and placed it in the trunk. I paused for a second before getting in. Then I turned back, just briefly. They were standing together. But not aligned the way they had been earlier. That had changed. Not dramatically, but enough. I got into the car, and as the door closed, the sound of the airport softened behind me. Not gone, just distant. The car pulled away slowly. For a moment, the airport remained in the side mirror glass, movement, people arriving and leaving without noticing anything unusual. Then it receded, blending into the rest of the road behind us. I settled back into the seat. The driver adjusted the radio to a low volume, something instrumental, soft enough that it didn't ask for attention. I didn't check my phone right away. That was intentional. There's a difference between reacting to what follows and allowing it to arrive in its own time. Outside, traffic moved steadily. Not rushed, not delayed. Just the usual morning rhythm. After a few minutes, my phone vibrated. I glanced down. Rebecca. I let it ring once more before answering. "Yes," I said. Her voice was different now. Not sharp, not controlled. Just unsettled. "What are we supposed to do?" she asked. I looked out the window before answering. "That depends on what you're asking," I said. A pause. "I mean about the trip," she said. "The trip has been cancelled," I replied. "That's not what I mean," she said quickly. "The reservations, the hotel, everything. It's still in place," I said. "Under the same conditions." "And those conditions are what, exactly?" "That the person who booked it is present," I said. Another pause. "So you're just going to let it go to waste?" I considered that for a moment. "At the time," I said, "it felt like an investment in time together. And now?" "Now it's a closed booking." That answer seemed to settle something, even if she didn't agree with it. "That's thousands of dollars," she said. "Yes, you're just okay with losing that?" "I'm okay with not extending it," I said. There was a quiet shift on the line. A recalculation. Rebecca exhaled. "Daniel says we should come back to your place." I didn't answer immediately, not because I hadn't heard her, because I was considering the structure of that request. "For what purpose?" I asked. "To talk," she said. "To figure this out." I watched a row of storefronts pass by outside. A dry cleaner, a small cafe with two people standing near the door, a delivery truck idling with its back open. "We can talk," I said, "but not to restore what was already decided." Another pause. "That's not fair," she said. "I'm not evaluating fairness," I replied. "I'm evaluating terms." The words sounded formal, even to me, but they were accurate. Rebecca was quiet for a few seconds. Then, more softly, "Mom, this didn't have to go this far." I thought about that, not defensively, just carefully. "It didn't start this far," I said. That seemed to land. Because she didn't respond right away. Instead, I heard a faint sound in the background, Daniel speaking, too low to make out the words. "What if we just reimburse you?" she said after a moment. That was new. Not apology, not acknowledgement. Transaction. "For what?" I asked. "For the trip," she said. "We'll pay you back." I let that sit for a second. Then I said, "This isn't about recovering money. Then what is it about?" She asked again. I had already answered that question once, but I understood why she was asking it again. "Control of the arrangement," I said. Another pause. Longer this time. "That's what this is about?" she asked. "It's what it became," I said. The driver turned onto a quieter street. Less traffic. More space between buildings. Rebecca spoke again, more measured now. "So what happens next?" "We'll talk," I said. "Later. At your place?" "Yes." "Today?" "Yes." Another pause. "Okay," she said. Then, after a second, "We'll come by this afternoon." I didn't confirm immediately, not out of hesitation, just to let the timing settle. "That works," I said. The call ended. I set the phone down beside me. Outside, the city had shifted again. Less commercial, more residential. Trees lining the sidewalks, people walking dogs. Normal, quiet movement. The kind that doesn't draw attention to itself. I leaned back slightly and closed my eyes for a moment. Not to rest, just to separate what had happened from what would follow. There's a tendency, after something changes, to immediately fill the space it leaves behind, to explain, to justify, to repair. But sometimes the more useful step is to leave that space open, to see what forms naturally without intervention. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a notification. The airline confirmation, updated itinerary. 2 passengers removed, 1 booking closed. The wording was neutral, clean, no judgment, just status. I opened it briefly, then closed it again. Procedure had completed its part. Now it would be followed by response. That's always the sequence. By the time we reached my building, the morning had settled into something quieter. The driver pulled up to the curb and stepped out to open the trunk. I gathered my things, stepped onto the sidewalk, and took a moment before going inside. The building looked the same, unchanged, which, in a way, felt grounding. I thanked the driver, took my bag, and walked toward the entrance. Inside, the lobby was still. The same neutral tones, the same quiet arrangement of furniture. Nothing out of place. The doorman nodded. "Welcome back." "Thank you," I said. I took the elevator up. As the doors closed, I caught my reflection briefly in the mirrored panel. Nothing different, at least not visibly. But something had shifted. Not outward, structural. The elevator opened. I stepped into the hallway, unlocked my door, and walked inside. The apartment was exactly as I had left it. Still, orderly. The kind of quiet that doesn't ask questions. I set my bag down, walked into the kitchen, and poured a glass of water. Then I stood there for a moment, looking out the window. The city moved below in its usual patterns. Cars stopping at lights, people crossing streets, everything continuing. That's the part people rarely mention. Change doesn't stop the world, it just repositions you within it. I took a sip of water and set the glass down. Then I walked to my desk and opened my laptop, not to check messages, to review. The accounts were still active, the charges still visible, the structure still intact. Nothing had been reversed, nothing needed to be. I opened a document and began listing what remained open. Hotel reservation, transfer services, dining, booking. Each one tied to a condition, each one dependent on presence. I didn't act on any of them yet. I just noted them. Clarity first, action later. That's when everything started to feel settled. Not resolved, but organized. And that made the next steps easier to see. The apartment stayed quiet for most of the afternoon. Not empty, just undisturbed. I moved through a few small routines without thinking much about them. I rinsed the glass I had used earlier, straightened a stack of mail near the entry table, opened a window slightly to let in some air. Ordinary things. That helped. It kept the pace even. Around 2 o'clock, I sat down at my desk again and reopened the document I had started earlier. The reservations were still there. Hotel, transfers, dinner, all confirmed, all unused, all dependent. I added a few more notes. Check-in window, cancellation cutoff, authorization requirements. Nothing complicated, just structure. My phone buzzed once, a message from Daniel. We're on our way, no punctuation, no extra wording. I read it once and set the phone aside. About 20 minutes later, the intercom rang. I walked to the panel near the door. Yes? It's Rebecca and Daniel, the doorman said. Send them up, I replied. There was a brief pause after I pressed the button. That kind of pause you don't usually notice. Then the soft, mechanical sound of the elevator beginning its ascent. I returned to the living room and took a seat. Not directly facing the door, slightly angled, a habit from years of meetings. It changes the tone of a room without announcing it. A minute later, there was a knock. 3 short taps. I stood, walked over, and opened the door. Rebecca stepped in first. Daniel followed. Neither of them spoke immediately. They looked around, not as if anything had changed, but as if they were recalibrating how to enter the space. Come in, I said. They moved into the living room. Rebecca placed her bag on the chair, but didn't sit right away. Daniel stood near the window, hands loosely at his sides. For a few seconds, no one said anything. Then Rebecca exhaled. We need to talk about what happened, she said. I nodded once. We can. She waited, as if expecting me to continue. I didn't. Eventually, she sat down. Daniel remained standing for another moment, then took a seat across from her. That created a triangle. Balanced. Clear lines. Rebecca looked at me. Why did you do it like that? I considered the question. Like what? I asked. At the airport, she said, cancelling the ticket without saying anything. I had already been given the arrangement, I said. That's not the same thing. No, I agreed. It isn't. She leaned forward slightly. You could have just said something. I could have, I said. But that wouldn't have changed the structure. Daniel spoke for the first time since entering. It would have given us a chance to adjust, he said. You had already adjusted, I replied. That stopped him for a moment. Rebecca shook her head. You're making this sound like a business decision. In some ways, it was, I said. That's not how family works. I didn't respond immediately, because that sentence had been used before, in different forms, in different contexts, usually at the point where structure was expected to bend. Family can include structure, I said. Rebecca leaned back slightly, crossing her arms. So what, we just follow rules now? No, I said. We recognize them. Daniel glanced between us. Let's stay focused, he said. We need to figure out what happens next. That depends on what you're expecting, I said. Rebecca looked at me. I'm expecting some kind of resolution. There is one, I said. What is it? I let a small pause sit between us. Not for effect, just to give the answer space. The arrangements that depend on me remain dependent on me, I said. She frowned. Meaning? Meaning they don't transfer automatically, I said. Daniel nodded slightly, as if confirming something he had already started to understand. And the ones that don't depend on you? He asked. Those are yours to manage, I said. Rebecca exhaled again, slower this time. So we're just starting from scratch? In some areas, yes. That's not practical. It's accurate, I said. There was another pause, this one longer. Rebecca looked down at her hands for a moment, then back up. Do you realize how this looks? She asked. I'm not focused on how it looks, I said. I'm focused on how it functions. Daniel shifted slightly in his seat. We can't undo what already happened, he said, so we need to work forward. That's usually the direction things go, I said. He almost smiled at that. Almost. Rebecca didn't. She leaned forward again. Okay, she said. Then let's be clear. I nodded. What do you want? She asked. It was the first time the question had been framed that way. Direct, unfiltered. I took a moment before answering. I want clarity, I said. About what? About roles, I said. And expectations, she frowned slightly. We already know those. I don't think we do, I said. Daniel looked at me. Then define them. I met his gaze. Support isn't automatic, I said. And it isn't indefinite. Rebecca's expression tightened. So now everything comes with conditions. Everything always did, I said. They just weren't acknowledged. That shifted the room again. Not louder, just heavier. Rebecca sat back, quiet for a moment. Then she said, more softly, I didn't think you saw it that way. I didn't, I said. Not at first. Daniel leaned forward slightly. And now I do. That was the point where the conversation changed. Not resolved, but redirected. Rebecca looked between us, then back at me. So what happens to the trip? She asked. The reservation remains, I said. And we can't use it without you. That's correct. She nodded slowly. Then, after a moment, are you going? No. Another pause. Then it expires, she said. Yes. She let that settle. The room went quiet again, not tense. Just, still. That's when something softened slightly. Not agreement, not acceptance, just the absence of immediate resistance. Daniel spoke again, more measured now. We'll need to adjust a few things, he said. Yes, I replied. Rebecca looked at him. Like what? Finances, he said. Planning, assumptions. He didn't look at me when he said it, but the meaning was clear. Rebecca nodded once, slowly. Then she stood up. I need some air, she said. I didn't stop her. She walked toward the door, opened it, and stepped out into the hallway. The door closed quietly behind her. For a moment, Daniel and I sat in silence. Then he looked at me. I didn't expect this, he said. I know, I replied. He nodded. Then, after a pause, but I understand it. That was the first clear acknowledgement. Not agreement, but recognition. He stood up, walked toward the window, and looked out for a moment. Then he turned back. We'll figure it out, he said. I expect you will, I replied. He gave a small nod. Then he walked toward the door. Before leaving, he paused. Things will be different, he said. Yes, I said. They will. He opened the door and stepped out. The apartment returned to quiet again. the same quiet as before, but not the same structure. I sat there for a few minutes without moving, letting the conversation settle, not replaying it, just allowing it to exist as it was. That's when I understood something more clearly than before. You can't take what was never yours. The words came without effort, not as a conclusion, as a fact. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and poured another glass of water. Outside, the light had shifted again. Longer shadows, softer edges. The day moving forward without interruption. Inside, everything felt more defined. Not heavier, just clearer. The door stayed closed for a while after they left. I didn't follow them. I didn't call out. I just remained where I was, letting the quiet return on its own terms. There's a particular kind of silence that comes after a conversation like that, not tense, not empty, just settled, as if the room has absorbed what was said and is no longer asking for anything more. I walked back to the window and stood there for a moment. Below, the street moved, as it always does. A delivery van double parked, someone crossing against the light, a dog pulling slightly ahead of its owner on a short leash. Normal motion, uninterrupted. That helped. It reminded me that not everything shifts at once. Some things stay exactly where they are. Around 3:30, my phone buzzed again. A message from Rebecca. "I'm outside." I read it once, then set the phone down. I didn't respond immediately, not to delay, just to consider the tone. About a minute later, another message appeared. "Can I come back up?" I picked up the phone this time. "Yes," I typed. The intercom rang shortly after. I let her in. When the door opened again, she stepped in more slowly than before. No bag this time, just her phone in her hand. "I didn't go far," she said. "I assumed you wouldn't," I replied. She gave a small, almost distracted nod and walked into the living room. This time she sat down without waiting. I remained standing for a moment, then took the same seat as before. The arrangement returned. Not identical, but close enough to feel familiar. For a few seconds, she didn't speak. She looked down at her hands, then at the floor, then finally at me. "I didn't mean it the way it sounded," she said. I didn't interrupt. "I mean, the airport," she continued. "The seat, the way I said it." I watched her carefully, not evaluating, just listening. "It came out wrong," she added. "That's often how people describe it, as if words arrive independently of intention." I nodded slightly. "I understand that it didn't feel wrong to you at the time," I said. She looked up. "No, I just—" She stopped, then tried again. "I didn't think it through." That was closer, not complete, but closer. "Okay," I said. She seemed to wait for something more, a response, a release. When it didn't come, she continued. "I wasn't trying to put you in a worse position," she said. It just made sense in the moment. I tilted my head slightly. "To you," I said. "Yes," she admitted. There was a pause. Then she added, more quietly, "I didn't think you'd mind." That was the part that mattered. Not the seat, not the arrangement. That assumption. "I know," I said. She frowned slightly. "Then why?" "Because that assumption had been building for a long time," I said. She leaned back a little, absorbing that. "I didn't see it like that," she said. "I didn't either," I replied. "Not at first." Another pause. Then she said something that felt different from everything before. I think I got used to it. I didn't respond immediately, because that was the first sentence that didn't redirect or defend. It acknowledged, even if only partially. "Used to what?" I asked. "To you. Handling things," she said. "Making things work." I nodded once. "That's accurate," I said. She looked at me carefully. "And now?" "Now I don't," I said. The simplicity of it seemed to land more than any explanation would have. She exhaled slowly. I didn't think it would change like this, she said. Most patterns don't, I replied. Until they do. That stayed between us for a moment. Then she asked, so where does that leave us? I considered the question, not abstractly. Practically. It leaves us with clearer terms, I said. Which are? That you make your own arrangements, I said. And I make mine. She nodded slowly. And if we want to do something together? She asked. Then we agree on it, I said. Beforehand. Not assumed. Not adjusted afterward. Defined. She looked down again, thinking. Then she said, Daniel thinks we should start separating some things. I didn't react to the phrasing. Financially, she added. That would be consistent with what we discussed, I said. She nodded again. Then, after a moment, he also said we should probably look at our own accounts more closely. That would be advisable, I said. She almost smiled at that. Almost. There was a shift in the room, subtle, not warm, but less resistant. I didn't realize how much of it was connected, she said. Most systems are, I replied. She let that sit. Then she asked, Are you angry? The question came out unexpectedly, not sharp, just direct. I thought about it. I was surprised, I said. And now? I'm clear, I replied. She nodded. That seemed to answer something for her. After a few seconds, she stood up. I should go, she said. I didn't stop her. She walked toward the door, then paused with her hand on the handle. I'll call you, she said. Okay, I replied. She opened the door, stepped out, and closed it quietly behind her. The apartment returned to stillness again, but this time it felt different, not just quiet, rebalanced. I walked back to the window once more. The light had shifted further now. Late afternoon, longer shadows stretching across the street. I stood there for a while, not thinking about the conversation in detail, just noticing the absence of pressure. That was new. Not dramatic, just noticeable. My phone buzzed once more. A notification. Banking alert. I opened it. No new charges, no changes, everything stable. I closed the app. Then I turned away from the window and walked toward the kitchen. There were small things to do. Dinner to think about. A few emails to respond to. Normal tasks. The kind that anchor a day. As I moved through them, one thought settled more clearly than the rest. Some people don't realize what holds a structure together until it's no longer holding them. I didn't say it out loud. I didn't need to. It was already understood. The evening came in quietly. No sudden shift. Just a gradual dimming of the light through the windows, the kind that makes the room feel softer without changing anything in it. I kept the routine simple. I made something light for dinner. Toast, a small salad, nothing elaborate. The kind of meal that doesn't require attention, just presence. I left the television off. Let the apartment stay as it was quiet, contained, undisturbed. Around 6, I sat down again at my desk, not to revisit what had happened, to confirm what remained. The reservations were still active. Hotel unchanged. Transfers still scheduled. Dinner confirmed for 2 nights from now. I hovered over the cancellation window for a moment. There was still time to recover part of the cost. Not all of it, but enough to make the option reasonable. I didn't select anything yet. Instead, I opened the terms again. Not because I hadn't read them, because I prefer to see the structure clearly before I close it. Non-transferable. Primary cardholder required. Partial refund window closing at midnight. I read that last line twice. Midnight. There was something about having a defined endpoint that made things easier. Not urgent. Just contained. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Daniel. I let it ring once, then answered. Yes? His tone was steady. We've been reviewing everything, he said. I assumed you would, I replied. A brief pause. We're going to cancel our side of the travel, he said. That's consistent, I said. We'll absorb what we need to, he added. I noticed the phrasing, not defensive, not apologetic, just procedural. That makes sense, I said. Another pause. Then, more carefully, I also wanted to say, I understand your position. I didn't respond immediately, not because I disagreed, because I wanted to hear how he defined it. Which part? I asked. The ownership of the arrangement, he said, and the expectation attached to it. That was accurate, concise. I nodded, even though he couldn't see it. Yes, I said. There was a small shift in his tone, less guarded now. We should have been clearer, he added. That would have helped, I said. Another pause. Then he said, We'll restructure things moving forward. I heard the intention in it. Not a promise, a plan. That would be advisable, I said. He let out a quiet breath. Rebecca's still adjusting. I understand, I said. She didn't see it the way you did. I know. And now? Now she's beginning to, I said. There was a brief silence. Then he said something that settled more than the rest. We didn't expect you to step back. I didn't either, I replied. That seemed to close something. Not the situation, just that part of the conversation. We'll be in touch, he said. All right, I replied. The call ended. I set the phone down and looked back at the screen. Midnight. The cancellation window still open. I moved the cursor slightly, then stopped. Not because I was unsure, because I wanted the decision to feel complete before I acted. Outside, the streetlights had come on, a soft, even glow across the pavement. People walking with slower steps now. The day winding down. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and poured another glass of water. Then I returned to the desk, sat down, and closed the reservations, one by one. Hotel, cancelled. Transfers, cancelled. Dinner, cancelled. Each confirmation appeared cleanly on the screen. No resistance, no complication, just completion. The funds wouldn't all return. That wasn't the point. The structure had been closed. Fully. I leaned back slightly in the chair. And for the first time that day, there was nothing pending. No open loops, no unresolved conditions. Just a finished sequence. I turned off the desk lamp and walked back into the living room. The apartment felt the same, but lighter. Not because something had been removed, because something had been clarified. I sat down for a moment and looked around. The same furniture, the same quiet arrangement, everything in its place. That's when a thought returned from earlier. Slightly different this time, more complete. Some people mistake silence for permission, but silence isn't agreement. It's just unchallenged space. And once that space changes, everything built on it has to adjust. I stood up, turned off the last light, and walked toward the bedroom. The day had ended, not dramatically, not with resolution announced out loud. Just concluded. And that was enough. If stories about quiet boundaries resonate with you, you're welcome to stay.